Okay, good morning, Boker Tov, everybody. Welcome back. Suma no, sorry, not Suma Merabanan. That's later. This is the Gemara Shiur. We are on Masechet Beitzah Daf Daled Amud Alef. That's where we're up to. We have, for the first few Shiurim, again, gotten through this idea from the Mishnah. We saw that a Beitzah, I just mentioned it again because it's relevant to our current sugya. But again, the Mishnah said, Beitzah shnoda b'yom tov, Beit Shammai amrim ta'achel, Beit Hillel omrim lo ta'achel. Right? That was the machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel regarding an egg which is laid on Yom Tov. We saw four different opinions, precisely what the Mishnah is talking about. Only according to the first opinion, which was Rav Nachman, were we dealing with a case or question of muktzah, and it was a chicken which was designated for laying eggs. According to the other three opinions, it was in fact a chicken which is designated for achila. It's not an issue of muktzah, but a separate issue according to Rabbi, an issue of hachana, and it's primarily because of Yom Tov, which falls out after Shabbos, or Rav Yosef and Rabbi Yitzchak talking about perot hanoshrim or mashkin shezavu. Okay. And we had a little bit of back and forth in the Gemara, bit of Shaklavataria regarding those different terutzim. At this point, the Gemara moves on to something slightly different, but still related. So we're on Daf Daled Amud Alef. We're about a bit past a third of the way down the page, maybe halfway down of the narrow lines, the line which begins Tanya. It says Tanya Acherim Omrim. If you see Tosfot Dibra Matchil Ela, about 3 or 4 lines down from there. The Gemara says Tanya Acherim Omrim Mishum Rabbi Eliezer Beitzah Te'achel Hi Ve'ima. Okay, so until now we've been discussing exactly what the case of the Mishnah is, and again we saw that there was the machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. That Beit Hillel say it's forbidden to eat this egg. Beit Shammai permit. Rabbi Eliezer, who we know, according in many places, paskins in fact like Beit Shammai, not like Beit Hillel. So the Beitzah here says, Tanya Charim Omrim Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, Beitzah Te'achel Hi Ve'ima. So this is going according to the opinion of Beit Shammai. It says the egg can be eaten, the egg together with its mother, together with the chicken. Now the question is, why does the Beitzah need to tell us this? What is the case that it's talking about? It says, B'maya skin. What are we dealing with in this Beitzah? Ilema b'tanagolet ha'omedet la'achila pshita de'ive'ima shaleh. If you say this is now a case, so we're kind of working backwards. The same way we tried to work out in the Mishnah which egg and which chicken it was talking about. Same thing here in the Beitzah, which says that it's permitted. But the difference is here the Beitzah tells us the egg and the chicken are permitted. So if we're dealing with a tanagolet ha'omedet la'achila, if it's a chicken which is designated for food, so then we're saying that the egg, which is going to be uchla de'efrat, it's going to be food which comes from food. So then it's obvious, pshita de'ive'ima sharia. It's obvious that both the chicken and the egg are going to be permitted. There's no chiddush there. I don't need the Beitzah to teach me this. Have a look at Rashi. Rashi, a few lines down, where he says pshita de'ive'ima sharia, says klomar. If the point is you're coming to teach me that Rabbi Eliezer holds halacha like Beit Shammai, and therefore he holds that the Beitzah is that it's mutar. So in Balamak Beit Shammai, lishmain and Beitzah, imalameli pshita de sharia. Right? We saw this logic earlier. If you're coming to tell me that the egg is permitted, so obviously the chicken's going to be permitted. It's a greater chiddush to permit the egg, so you don't need to tell me the chicken as well. That's obvious. Okay. That's if we're dealing with so now continues the Gemara. But so what? So you're going to say no, that you're actually talking about a tanagolet that's designated for to lay eggs. So hivi masura. Well, if that's the case, then both the egg and the chicken will be forbidden. That's what we saw. And so we saw in our Mishnah by Rav Nachman. Over here, Rabbi Eliezer is in fact is going to agree in terms of muktzah. That's what Rashi tells. He says, "He ve'masura the shamina and Rabbi Eliezer to eat le muktzah." We learn later on that Rabbi Eliezer does hold by the prohibition of muktzah. So we don't understand what the Beitzah is talking about. The question is, why the writer says he ve'ima, talks about the egg and the mother. If it's to teach you, if it's dealing with a case of a chicken which is for laying eggs, well, then it should be still forbidden, according to Rabbi Eliezer. Can't be talking about that. If it's dealing with a case of a Tanagolet Hamedet Lachila, it would have been sufficient to just say that the egg is kosher. Why does it say, that's our question, why does it say the egg together with the chicken? So two answers. Answer number one says the Gemara like this. Amar Rabbi Zera. Amar Rabbi Zera Tachel Agav Ima. So says Rabbi Zera, here's the Chiddush. It's to teach you that the egg can be eaten because of the mother, along with the chicken. What do you mean? He says, Eichidami, Amar Abaye, Kegon shelakha stam, nishchata huvrora de la achila omedet, lo nishchata huvrora de la gader beitzim omedet. Okay, so here we have a concept called huvrera, we have a concept called breira, not to be confused with the malacha of borer on Shabbat, but the halachic concept of breira, which is related to muktzeh, which we'll discuss in more depth later on. But essentially what it means is this. We've been saying until now, where does muktzeh come from? Muktzeh literally means that it's set aside, that it's designated. So, but we say that before Shabbat or before Yom Tov, person has to decide what they are designated something for, right? Certain objects we know have and this is part of the machlokes of muktzeh, how far we go. How far do we say that you have to subjectively designate things? Or do we say that objectively things are designated one way or the other? So certain objects we know have a use and they are never going to be muktzeh, and certain objects never have a use and they're always going to be muktzeh, and certain objects are going to be somewhere in the middle. So the chicken is a good example. If we say, we've been dealing now for the last three dapim, if we say that we have a chicken which is haomedet legadel beitzim, or we have a chicken which is haomedet la'achila, if it's designated for food, then it's designated before Shabbat that it's not muktzeh. If it's designated for eggs, it's designated before Yom Tov. Then it's designated before Yom Tov that it is muktzeh. Now we're introducing a concept of breira. Breira means I did not explicitly designate it one way or the other before Shabbat or before Yom Tov came in. And can I say that it's retroactively designated based on what I do on Yom Tov or based on what I do on Shabbat that's going to reveal what I had in mind, what I intended for the specific object? Okay, that is a machloket throughout Shas, whether we say yesh breira or ein breira. According to this opinion, we would say yesh breira, and this is what it means to say. So Rabbi Zera says, when you say you can eat the egg together with the mother, what you're saying is that when you, depending on what you do with the chicken, that is going to reveal the status of the egg, right? So he says, Amar Bizarra Te'achel Agav Ima, is eaten as a result of the chicken. How so? Echidami Amar Abaye Kegon Shelakacha Stam. So this is the case. This chicken before he says when he lekacha, Rashi says he bought it. He didn't buy it as an egg-laying chicken or as a meat chicken. He's bought it as a chicken. What's it for? What's it designated for? I don't know. It doesn't have a designation. So that's the point. It was taken stam. Chastam. Nishchata. So if on Yom Tov he then went and killed the chicken to eat, okay, Huvara de l'achila omedet. Then it's clear that it was actually taken for achila. That's breira, and therefore it was taken for achila. Therefore it was never muktzeh, and therefore the egg is not muktzeh, and that can be eaten as well. Lo nishchata. If you did not kill it, you kept it for laying eggs. So then hovara de legadel beitzim omedet. Then it becomes clear that it was for the purposes of eggs, and therefore it would be muktzeh. Okay, so that is answer number one. That is Rabbi Zera. The reason why the writer says that the egg Beitzah ve'ima is to tell you that what you do with ima, what you do with the chicken, is going to reveal the breira of the egg or not. So that is one answer. Answer number two. Rav Mari Amar Guzmaktani. Rav Mari says, no. When it says Beitzah, this is just a way of speaking. It's just an expression. Guzma lagzim, in Hebrew, is to exaggerate, right? Says Rashi over here, Guzmaktani. You want to say something, you want to give it more impact with what you say. So medaber yeter, you exaggerate a little bit. And here we are dealing with where it's a chicken which is designated for eating. And he argues, Rabbi Eliezer holds like argues against Beit Hillel, who would forbid it, as we said, holds like Beit Shammai. As you questioned earlier, it does not need to say, and its mother and the chicken. This is just giving extra tokef to his words, giving extra force, just exaggerating a little bit. Hakol yochal. It's like saying, you can eat. Yes, it's completely permitted. You can eat everything. You can eat the chicken. You can eat the egg. You can eat whatever you want. And we'll see now the Gemara brings us another example where this is done. So Rav Mari Amar Guzmak Tani, the Tanya. Acherim omrim mishom Rabbi Eliezer, Beitzah te'achel hi ve'ima ve'efrach uklipato. Okay, this is a Beitzah we're going to see a bit later on Daf Vav Amud Bet, I believe it is. But there we also have a lashon of Guzma, and the Gemara is going to prove it now. It says in the same way, a different Beitzah says Rabbi Eliezer says you can eat the egg. There it doesn't just say with its mother. It says ta'achal hi ve'imo. You can eat the egg together with its mother. You can eat everything, right? And he says ve'efrach uklipato. You can eat the chick together with. You can eat the egg and the mother and the chick and the shell and everything, right? Now, my klipato. What do you mean you can eat the shell? You can eat the eggshell. So ilay ma klipa mamash klipa bat achilai. If you're saying that you can eat the actual shell, well, no, you can't. Everybody knows an eggshell is not edible. Elay frach beklipato. Rather, it means to say the chick in the shell. Meaning, don't read it as ifrach veklipato, read it as ifrach. Now, I'm just going to read it quickly. We won't discuss it at length now because we'll see it later on in the Gemara when we get to Daf Vav. The Gemara brings there is a machloket over here. Adkan lo pligi Rabbanan alei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov ela echad yatsa lavir haolam. Aval heichad lo yatsa lavir haolam lo pligi. If you're going to understand that you're talking about eating the chick from the egg, there's a machloket as to when the chick becomes permitted from inside the egg. This is to do with the dinim of shatzim. If the chick has if it has not yet emerged from the egg, is it still considered a treifa or not? That is a machloket here between Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Okay, the Gemara over here is quoting from this machloket, which will come later on Daf Vav. So I don't want to get into it now because we'll see it in more detail there, about whether it's come to the Avir Alam or not. But what comes out of this is therefore it says now in the second of the wide lines, he says lo pligi ela so it says lo pligi, in this case ela efrach v'klipato guzma hachinami, meaning it can't be because of this machloket between Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, which we'll see later on. It can't be the explanation of eating the chick inside the shell does not work because that's a machloket. But it must mean when it says ifrach v'klipato, it means you can eat the chick and the shell, but you obviously can't actually eat the shell. So therefore it's guzma. Therefore it's a language of guzma. It's just another way of saying, exaggerating, saying, oh, everything's permitted. So too over here, it says achanami tochal hi ve'ima guzma. Yeah, too it says you can eat it and its mother. You can eat everything. That's all. So that is the answer of Rav Mari. So again, so just to summarize, we had a Beitzah in the name of Rabbi Eliezer that said that you can eat the chicken, you can eat the egg together with the chicken. So we asked if that's really just to prove to us that Rabbi Eliezer holds like Beit Shammai, then why does it have to tell us Beitzah ve'ima? Just tell us he eats the egg, and that would be enough. So answer number one was Rabbi Zera, who said no, that's to teach us about the case of Breira, to teach us about a case where the chicken was taken stam. It wasn't designated either for eating or for laying eggs, because those would have different dinim. It was stam, and if you are going to slaughter the chicken, that's therefore the proof that you can eat the egg. That was Rabbi Zera's answer. Rav Mari says no, it's just lashon guzma. Doesn't actually have to say hivima, but it's another way of saying it's all permitted, and that's what it's coming to teach you. Okay, the Gemara now is going to get into a set of Beitzah, or a set of really Amoraic statements, talking about what happens when we have Shabbat followed by Yom Tov, or when we have the 2 days of Yom Tov, or we have the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. We mentioned this very, very briefly. We saw Rabbi Yochanan's question on Rabbi Yehuda previously. But the question is going to be, until now we've discussed, the egg that's laid on Yom Tov itself is forbidden. according to the opinion of Beit Hillel. What happens if you have Yom Tov and then Shabbat? If it's forbidden on the first day, is it permitted on the second day? Same question is going to come up regarding 2 days of Yom Tov. Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galiot. The egg that's laid on the first day, will it be permitted on the second? And finally, we'll ask the question regarding Rosh Hashanah, the 2 days. If it's laid on the first day, is it permitted on the second day? So those are the 3 cases the Gemara is going to discuss. The first case is Shabbat and Yom Tov, and it would be the same question whether Shabbat comes first or Yom Tov comes first. So when I have a Yom Tov which falls out either on Friday or it falls out on Sunday. Now, just one more word of introduction before we see what the Gemara says, because this sounds similar to the case we've already seen. Remember, in our but it's slightly different. In our 4 explanations of the Mishnah, so the second explanation was that of Rabbi. And Rabbi said that the Mishnah, why does the Mishnah say the Beitzah is Asura? Because it's talking about a case where you have Yom Tov, which falls out after Shabbat, right? So if the egg is laid on Yom Tov, which is the day after Shabbat, said Rabbi that the Hachana, the preparation of the egg, the Hachana b'dei Shamayim, was done the day before, because it's when it's completed inside the chicken's body. That would fall out on Shabbat. And therefore, the egg which was laid on Yom Tov was prepared on Shabbat. And we said Shabbat can't prepare for Yom Tov, Yom Tov can't prepare for Shabbat. Only Yom Chol can prepare for Shabbat or Yom Tov. Therefore, it is going to be forbidden. As a result, the Gemara said that's the Doraita case. The Rabbanan case is therefore any Shabbat or any Yom Tov, that's a Gzerah because of Yom Tov that falls out after Shabbat. That was Rabbah. Okay. When the Gemara now says, what happens when we have a case of Yom Tov which comes after Shabbat? Is the egg permitted? So at first glance, you might think we're dealing with the same case that Rabbah spoke about, because he was talking about Yom Tov after Shabbat. But there's a difference. It's not the same case, right? In Rabbah's case was, Yom Tov falls after Shabbat, and the egg is laid on Yom Tov. And my question is this egg permitted today on Yom Tov? Here we're asking a different question. There's Yom Tov which falls out after Shabbat, the egg was laid on Shabbat. Okay, now Yom Tov, which is the day after, is the egg going to be permitted on Yom Tov? Or vice versa. If Yom Tov came first on Friday, and the egg was laid on Yom Tov, is that egg now going to be permitted on Shabbat? You'll ask me, and the Gemara and Rashi discuss, how could the egg be permitted on Shabbat? You can't cook the egg on Shabbat. We've already said you could crack the egg open and you could swallow it raw, which is apparently a good remedy for one's voice. So says the Gemara. Okay, so the Gemara. So let's see. We are now on 1, 2, 3 lines down from the wide lines. Third line on Daf Daled Amud Alef. Itmam. So we have the Amoraim say the following. Shabbat v'Yom Tov. We're going to have a machloket. You have Shabbat and then Yom Tov. Rav Amar noda b'zeh asura b'zeh. V'Rabbi Yochanan Amar noda b'zeh muteret b'zeh. Again, this is different to the case of Rabbah of Hachana, because there Rabbah was talking about the same day that the egg was laid, whether it's permitted. Yeah, we're talking about the egg is laid the day before. So it was laid on Shabbat. Now the following day, Yom Tov, are you allowed to eat the egg or not? Or vice versa. So Rav Amar noda b'zeh asura b'zeh. Rav says, no, it's still going to be forbidden, even though it was laid the previous day. Today it's forbidden. Rabbi Yochanan Amar noda b'zeh muteret b'zeh. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, it said it is permitted. So what is the machloket between them? So suggestion number 1, Havamina, says the Gemara, Neima kasava Rav kudusha achati. Okay, why would we say that? Again, I understand why the egg is forbidden on the day that it's laid. Why should it be forbidden the next day? So if we say that the 2 days when they come together are considered as one kedusha, as one extended Yom Tov, so to speak, so then that would be then I understand why it would be forbidden. So Rav, who says that noda b'zeh asura b'zeh, says the Gemara, let's say that Rav assumes it's kedusha achat, Shabbat and Yom Tov, but it's 2 days of kedusha in a row. We relate to them as one. Relate to them as one long day, and therefore that would be forbidden. So now, so questions the Gemara on that explanation. V'hama Rav halacha ka'abaz kenim v'liba de Rabbi Eliezer t'amar shtei kedushot. So that answer doesn't work, because Rav says explicitly that when you have Shabbat followed by Yom Tov, we see in the Gemara in Eruvin that Rav says halacha is like the Abbas Kenim, like these 4 elders, according to Rabbi Eliezer. That's just how this halacha is presented over there. who said shtei kedushoten, that we look at it as two separate kedushot. We don't look at it as one. We don't look at it as one. Where this comes up in the Gemara in Eruvin regarding the issue of Eruv Tchumin. Again, these things are not necessarily so familiar to us in most cases, but we know there are different types of eruvin which a person can prepare before Shabbat. By the way, what we colloquially refer to as an eruv, most of the time we don't actually mean eruv. When we talk in halacha, you have an eruv chatzerot, you have an eruv tchumin, and you have an eruv tavshilin. So when we talk about a city-wide eruv, you talk about is the eruv up, was the eruv down, and you talk about you have the poles and the strings and the tzurat petach. We're really, generally speaking, about actually a mechitza, which is constructed by the means of tzurat petach, which is a way of surrounding the whole city. Over and above, beyond that, you have an eruv chatzerot. But colloquially, when we talk about eruv, we're actually usually not talking about eruv. But here, what's an eruv tchumin? Eruv Tchumin is a person has, beyond the city limits, has a certain measurement, a certain distance through which you're allowed to walk. And if towards the end of that you place an Eruv, you place meals, you place the amount for 2 Shabbos meals, and then by doing so, you extend your Tchum in that direction. So the question is, that's what's called an Eruv Tchumin. So the Gemara in Eruvin discusses, let's say you have Shabbat and Yom Tov. Let's say on one day, a person wants to walk to the north side of the city, and on the second day, they want to walk to the south side of the city. So could they place 2 different Eruvin, put an Eruv on this side for Shabbat, and put an Eruv on that side for Yom Tov? Obviously, this would only work if I relate to them as two separate days, 2 separate Kedushot. So it's in that context where Rav says over there, he follows the opinion of Halacha that says, Shtei Kedushoten. So Rav relates to Shabbat and Yom Tov as 2 separate entities, right? Does not relate to them as one Kedusha Rechta. So why does he say that Noda B'zeh Asura B'zeh? That's the question. So the answer is, it's not a machloket about 1 Kedusha, 2 Kedushot, which we'll see later on, may be the case in some of the other cases. But it says, Ela hacha b'chana de Rabba kamiflagei. The machloket between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan over here is about hachana de Rabba. Hachana de Rabba, which we saw already, that was Rabba's explanation for our Mishnah. He says, Rav itle hachana de Rabba, Rabbi Yochanan leitle hachana de Rabba. Okay, the Rav holds by this principle of hachana, and Rabbi Yochanan does not hold by this principle of hachana. So again, the case that Rabbi spoke about of hachana was where the hachana had taken place on Shabbat inside the guf of the chicken, and the egg was laid on Yom Tov. You say this egg's been laid on Yom Tov, but you can't benefit from it now today because the hachana took place yesterday, which was Shabbat. Here, what's the case? The case is the egg was laid on Shabbat. Okay, and now it's the next day is Yom Tov. So he's still saying, Rav is saying, according to Rabbah, since the egg was laid on Shabbat, that is an element of hachana, and that is Shabbat, preparing for Yom Tov, and therefore it's going to be forbidden. According to Rabbi Yochanan does not hold by the principle of hachana, so the egg was laid yesterday, so today it's fine. Rashi over here, Rashi in the second of the long lines in Rashi, he says, hachana de Rabbah, de amar hachana bidei shamayim mitzara, who said that hachana, even when it's, as we explained, hachana bidei shamayim, that is going to that's forbidden, mi Yom Tov leShabbat, from Yom Tov to Shabbat. The Seudat Shabbat, baya hazmanam Yom Chol, the Seudat Shabbat, and this would be the case of Seudat Yom Tov as well, needs hazmanah, needs designation, needs preparation, already from Yom Chol, migzerat hakatuv. Okay, now there's an obvious question here. There's an obvious question, which is as follows. I'm sure you're all thinking of it. If previously Rabbah said that when does the hachana take place? Rabbah said that you can't eat an egg that's laid on Yom Tov, which is after Shabbat, because even though the egg was laid today on Yom Tov, the hachana took place yesterday on Shabbat, before the egg was laid, when it was still inside the chicken's body. That was Rabbah. Okay, what our case now is fundamentally different. Our case is the egg was laid on Shabbat. The egg was laid on Shabbat. In other words, the egg was finished in the chicken's body when, if we say it's the day before, that was on Friday. So it was on Yom Chol. So the hachana of the egg before it was laid was on Yom Chol. Then the egg was laid on Shabbat. And now you're saying on Yom Tov, you can't benefit from the egg. Why? Because the hachana of the egg being laid took place on Shabbat. But I thought that the hachana of the egg was not of the egg being laid. The hachana was of the egg being completed inside the chicken's body the day before. Right? It seems to be a contradiction. If Rabbi said that the problem with the egg that's laid today was the fact that I can't benefit from it being laid today because it was prepared yesterday inside the chicken's body, now we're saying you can't benefit from it today because it was laid yesterday. That seems to contradict, and that is what Tosfot asks over here. Tosfot Tibor Matchil Ela. He says Ela b'achana de Rabba kamiflege. Says v'teima. This is very perplexing. The whole basis for Rabba's Svara was that when it's laid now, it means that the egg was completed yesterday, the day before. So imken kshechal Yom Tov lachar Shabbat. So now we have our cases. Yom Tov is after Shabbat. V'beitzah noda b'Shabbat, and the egg was laid on Shabbat. It was completed the day before, which is day of Chol. So what's the achana? What's the problem? Why is it asur? That is the question. That's the tema of Tosfot. And he says, Yesh lomar. The answer is as follows. He says it's true that the primary hachana, the preparation that took place, was the day before. But also when the egg is laid, that's also hachana. Also, the actual laying of the egg, that also includes a component of hachana, not as much, but it's still there and it's still relevant. That's answer number one. Answer number two says Tosfot, ve'od yesh lomar kevad im noda b'yom tov harezo asura. He says, since we say that if it had been laid on Yom Tov itself, it would be forbidden. Im nomal k'shenoda b'Shabbat harei muteret. If you say the fact that since if it was laid today on Yom Tov, it would be forbidden. And now you're saying that it was laid the day before on Shabbat. And now it's going to be permitted. So b'shvilota leida de Shabbat, im ken avei Shabbat mechin leYom Tov. What turns out from this, paradoxically, is that if it would be permitted, then that means that the fact that it was laid on Shabbat means that is preparing it to be permitted on Yom Tov, and that itself is preparation, and therefore that it's going to be forbidden. So that's what Tosfot says. So therefore, according to the Sfar of Rav, again, Rabbi Yochanan does not hold by achana, and therefore he says it's going to be mutar. But according to Rav, he says we hold like Rabbi, and therefore, if the day before, even if the egg was laid the previous day, on this day it's now going to be forbidden.
Kenigsberg?
Yeah.
Why does Tosfos need two answers?
Why does Tosfos need two answers? So
evidently again, one is not enough.
Right. So again, because still the primary hachana, and the understanding is that the primary hachana took place before it's laid. But he's saying you could really understand the second answer as a bit of an explanation of the first one as well. In other words, there is a certain amount of hachana that's taking place by the fact that it's laid, and if you'll say that that's not enough, still the primary hachana was the day before, so it should be permitted. So we'll say no. By the fact of saying that it's permitted, that is essentially turning this into a greater degree of hachana, and therefore that's going to be that's going to be a problem.
And so the egg wouldn't be permitted to be eaten on Shabbat itself because of the hachana of having been laid?
No, the egg is not permitted on Shabbat itself because the hachana. No. So it depends how you understand it. The egg won't be permitted on Shabbat itself. That's what Rabbi said before. Rabbi said the question of hachana deoraita is going to be only when it's Yom Tov after Shabbat. But once we have the prohibition of hachana of Yom Tov, which comes after Shabbat, the Gemara said therefore any Shabbat and any Yom Tov, it's going to be forbidden because of the Gzerah D'Rabbanan of hachana, according to Rabbi.
Again, I still don't understand.
Sorry, again,
why can't you eat it on Shabbat?
So that's what the Gemara said previously. Because the reason you can't eat it on Shabbat is a gzeira because of Yom Tov that comes after Shabbat.
Okay.
Okay. Beseda, Ad Kan for today. Shakach, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Have a good day.
Reminder, 10 o'clock, Tzubam Rabbanan, in Shiur on Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you.